Hello, today is Friday, January 22nd, 2021. I'm Joe Schmidt from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Jack Deal, one of TC2's managing directors, and Patrick Whittle, who is of Counsel at LB3. Is part of our What to Watch For in 2021 podcast series. Not surprisingly, we've been talking about trends to watch in 2021. And that includes network services and solutions, but we are also looking at the key providers in the space. So, what supplier trends can we expect to see as 2021 unfolds? Well, we believe it will be a year of evolution versus revolution, meaning continued execution by leading network and IT services suppliers on key 2020 initiatives. Several significant transformations were announced in 2020 and earlier, and plenty of work remains. There are significant areas of changes that may impact large enterprises, and we'll cover them today. First, you have T-Mobile's renewed focus on business services. Second is CenturyLink's rebranding as Lumen. Third is AT&T's network virtualization and the Verizon 2.0 restructuring. And then finally, you have the ongoing push to decommission legacy wireline services. Okay, guys, let's get to this. So, Jack, let me start with you. What's your view on the new T-Mobile?
Thanks, Joe. It's good to be here today. As a refresher, after a grueling 2-year approval process, T-Mobile closed on the Sprint acquisition last April. And the key benefit was spectrum. Sprint possessed a plentiful supply of attractive mid-band wireless frequency spectrum, of which is ideally suited for 5G services, and that now belongs to T-Mobile. It could position them as a market leader using their layer cake approach, which is a combination of low, mid, and high band spectrum that provides an optimal blend of coverage and speed for 5G. They've poured a lot of money into their network over the past few years, and they'll continue to do that in 2021. They're currently deploying standalone 5G new radio, which is the latest iteration and standard. They're upgrading cell site radios at a rate of 800 sites per week. For the enterprise, you should be aware of a key T-Mobile strategic post-merger goal, which is greater market penetration in the business segment. They've historically been consumer-focused, and that'll need to be overcome to be successful in the business space. Compared to traditional corporate wireless suppliers that you may use, they're less familiar with the unique needs of the large enterprise. As is often said, you need to lead them to water so they can take a drink. You can expect to see a push for greater enterprise presence by T-Mobile. Based upon what we've seen in the marketplace, T-Mobile can be expected to provide very aggressive pricing offers in order to acquire share, and that'll be combined with a willingness to be flexible on key commercial terms and support. But as noted, you'll need to educate them on what constitutes best-in-class requirements for the large enterprise. Applying a ton of team resources to sales opportunities is another characteristic, the strong show of force. That could be annoying, so you'll have to ask them to recalibrate if they bring too many parties to the table.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Okay, Patrick, let's turn to Lumen. I'm still not sure about that name, but hey, they are a key player for enterprises for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And I agree with you on both points. We don't have time to discuss the name, so we'll discuss the rest. First of all, we had some initial reactions to the rebranding, which we discussed rather extensively in September 2020 on another podcast, to which we refer the listener. So the question is, where are we a few months later, and what does it mean for the enterprise going forward into 2021? Well, the answer in part is we're still not certain, except for the market image. As we noted then, this is really a makeover to transform customer perception. They'd struggled with their brand perception thanks to some of their old-fashioned ILEC assets and to difficulties with adapting the, legacy ILEC consumer-based habits to the enterprise world. Now they want us to think in terms of new age big tech, people like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, instead of thinking of them in terms of legacy local telcos like Frontier and AT&T and Verizon. They state they're committed to building out their platform underlying the new brand. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe setting the stage for a more extensive restructuring, be it corporate or Salesforce or account teams or what have you. So keep your eyes open for that. One of their technological advantages that they are pushing hard now is their attempt to position themselves as a leader in network edge computing and solution delivery, and to leverage thereby the benefits of low latency. They claim they can reach 98% of U.S. enterprises with 5 millisecond one-way latency now, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. They also tout the benefits of this latency for 5G, Internet of Things, virtual reality, remote learning, and similar applications that presumably will be vastly improved by their new technological blueprint. They have turned up their first block of cloud edge nodes in the third quarter of last year. They aim to have 250 such nodes deployed globally when they're done. The nodes will include not only the virtual machine devices that we're familiar with, but also bare metal devices to allow people to take, they say, maximum advantage of the omnipresence of their edge nodes. They say they will be engaging in a shift from individual service delivery, i.e. contracting for individual circuits and services, to developing end-to-end platforms for the large enterprise. That's been an issue with them, as we discussed in the September podcast, in terms of being flexible, being well packaged, being coordinated, et cetera. So we'll see how they execute on that one. They intend to include within that private cloud and multi-tenant solutions. And finally, they propose to emphasize self-service tools under a common platform to facilitate management, such as APIs, digital portals, etc. So doing all this, they've elevated their status so that we're starting to refer to the big three network and managed services suppliers versus the old big two. They're becoming a challenger to AT&T and Verizon. They should be part of the sourcing delivery mix in environments where their resources and footprints can be leveraged. One of the places in which that is true arises from their having acquired the level 3 assets. In doing so, they added about not quite 5 million miles of fiber. That underlies their claim that they can reach 98% of enterprises. And after that acquisition, they climbed to the top of the vertical systems carrier leaderboard for Ethernet. So they have been executing to a great extent, but what that means for enterprise customers is still very much a work in progress. One key gap may be a lack of wireless connectivity, where folks on the enterprise side need integrated wireless and, for lack of a better word, wireline solutions. Contracting may be a challenge because old habits die hard, and they have historically had a fragmented service-by-service contracting approach and have not necessarily been the easiest to negotiate customer-friendly terms with. So they're going to brief the advisor community during the first quarter of this year, and we'll see what happens next, and we'll let you know.
All right. Thanks for that, Patrick. Both you and Jack, you sort of touched on the importance of wireless services. And I think, as you guys know, Kevin Alano and we just finished up a couple of podcasts that covered 5G. And one of the key takeaways was that it's costing the providers a boatload of money. You know, AT&T and Verizon, they're two of the top three providers, as you pointed out, Patrick, for mobile services in the U.S. So besides the 5G investment, what else are these guys up to?
Well, they're up to cutting costs, Joe. You know, AT&T and Verizon, they just keep on keeping on to fund that 5G effort. They continue to execute on previously announced network and corporate transformations, restructurings, force reductions. Turning first to AT&T, their network virtualization initiative was first announced in 2014. And that involves conversion of core legacy network functions to today's software-defined solutions. They had a very well-publicized goal of 75% virtualization by the end of 2020. That's a 6-year time frame to achieve that, and I believe they made that goal. The initial benefits for enterprises are not real clear. The first benefits are internal operational savings of 10% or more, but there has been some enterprise feature functionality that has started to appear. One observable benefit is the FlexWare SD-WAN virtual CPE, and I think more can be expected in that area. It's not yet clear when benefits will be expanded beyond the core network to areas like client care, sales, and relationship management, where they would be more readily recognized by the enterprise. Turning to Verizon, their 2.0 corporate operating restructure was announced in the fall of 2018. That's a true reorg and a refocus around 3 principles: 5G wireless, network fiber, and internal network transformation, virtualization similar to the AT&T initiative, to address the growth in strategic services and the decline in legacy revenue from legacy business services. Key for customers for this is a shift from the multiple client-facing silo resources for wireless and wireline to a unified consolidated model for large companies under global enterprise solutions. We're starting to see some evidence of this late 2020, depending on what market strata you might be in. I was speaking to one of our clients this morning, and it became effective for them January 1st. Also key for customers will be continuation of Verizon's expectation of new revenue to offset the impact of services price downs, the so-called give to get that we've discussed before that is baked into renewal deals. The counter to this is to leverage Verizon by competing the business. Both suppliers recently announced partnerships with leading cloud providers, including Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, to move legacy internal data center applications to the cloud. That's also to achieve some cost savings, and it's not yet clear what the impact to end customers will be. But expect to hear about integrated client solutions partnering from both Verizon and AT&T, as it will be an area of focus for them. While these transformations will likely deliver greater feature functionality and other service solution benefits, there may be a price to pay in terms of client-facing resources. According to Light Reading, the pace of force reductions has accelerated over the last 5 years, declines of 17% noted for AT&T and 25% for Verizon. It may also result in greater self-service obligations for and on clients, which could be a positive, provided there are effective tools and the benefits of virtualization flow through.
All right. Thanks for that, Jack. Okay. Hey, Patrick, why don't you bring us home and tell us what we should expect with some of the older technologies that Jack just referenced that our clients still use?
Sure, Joe. The legacy technologies I think we can think of in terms of things like 2G, CDs, Betamax, Windows 7, other things that have essentially dwindled to the point where the vendors are just not going to support them much anymore. We covered this in depth in a podcast back in July. That vendors are trying to once and for all complete the move of their customers away from the legacy circuit switched voice and TDM data technologies. They're anxious to retire this plant. It's become a white elephant for them. They want to leverage full advantage from the network virtualization initiatives that we've already discussed and that were discussed earlier in the July podcast. They're eliminating support. They're eliminating availability, especially for new orders, and they're increasing prices whenever contracts come up for renewal, and they're increasing prices by a lot. I'm an old regulatory lawyer, and one question that folks always have is, can they do this? And the answer is yes, they can do this because there aren't really any regulatory constraints anymore protecting customers of these legacy technologies. So now is the time, if you haven't already done it, to develop a migration strategy. And the July podcast has a lot of good advice on how to go about doing that. The last note that I would make as a lawyer is that when the vendors try to migrate you from your legacy technology to the newer technologies, they will try to impose new and different contract terms on you, which have the potential to undermine or even eliminate contractual protections that you fought for over the years. So be very careful of that. Make sure you review those closely and fight back where they've tried to do that. And that's where the pitfalls primarily lie. So, Joe, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate that insight. And thanks as well, Jack. Clearly, guys, there is a lot going on that could impact what enterprises buy and from whom. So if you need some help sorting it all out, please contact Patrick, Jack, me, or any of our colleagues at LB3 and TC2 because we are ready to help. Now, if you do want to stay up to date on the latest goings on in the ICT space, please subscribe to Staying Connected. You can check out our websites and you can follow us on LinkedIn.